Oh yeah, one last thing. If you find that you can't address it and solve it on your own, please seek counsel, whether from your church or from a professional counselor. Because if the talking hasn't worked and the things are still going on and still affecting you, and no matter how you approach it, whether man or female, it's not resolving, go and find somebody who can help in that situation.
Just to ask a question here, related to the mind, body, and soul. Our backgrounds, I believe, have played a part. I know you said it. So, now what about a situation where there's been a lot of trauma? Oh, my wife was going to ask that. You see, the two of them. It's the same question, okay. Number one, how do you identify that this person has gone through a traumatic situation? And then two, what is the approach?
How do you identify? That one is difficult.
I mean, I'm talking of the couple.
Yeah. So how do I know that my wife has gone through some traumatic experiences? For the most part, unless she tells me. Or then you might be in a situation where the person is responding in very, very abstract ways to certain stimuli or certain stressors, and you're like, why are you behaving like this? You hear a knock on the door, and then she's going in the house, and then she's hiding under the bed. Why are you doing this? The doorbell rings, and then she immediately goes downstairs to go and do the laundry. There's no laundry to be done. So you see abnormal behavior on a consistent basis related to specific stimuli, and then you say, okay, well, there's something going on over here. I said, if they don't open up, then that's how you're going to have to do it, and those things are very, very difficult to identify. I mean, it takes a professional like us to actually dive deep and actually sometimes even identify these things. Some people, they'll come to us and they'll even tell you that they've gone through this. But then you see consistent behaviors like, no, something has gone on. I've had patients where they didn't tell me anything and I said, something has gone on. Because the way you behave is consistent with this kind of pattern of behavior. So please, I don't challenge them, but I tell them, listen, it's open and free. Just tell me what's going on. All right? Explain to them that, listen, what you're doing or how you're behaving, it's negatively impacting us as a whole. I feel that something has gone on in the past that has caused you to think like this or caused you to behave like this. Please just be open so that we can get it resolved. I'm here to work it out with you. If you approach, I said, approach situations to win. Well, what's wrong with you? Why are you always doing this? Are you crazy? Go and see a therapist. Are you going to get results that way? No. So approach situations in a manner that you will win. And that is with appreciating, understanding, and then also respecting that person and the things that they've gone through. As I said, hurt people. It's because people have gone through all kinds of stuff in the past that they intend to do. So unless you have, like, you're a sociopath or a psychopath, like, the things that you've gone through in the past usually led to people actually affecting or negatively impacting other people. So those kind of traumas, when you find out what it is, then you can actually seek help. If you don't know what it is or you don't know it's there, period, you just be wondering, why does this guy behave like this? Why does this woman behave like this? Address it. As I said, if you don't find that behavior can continue with you to you being satisfied, address it. So that it doesn't become a problem down the line.
So many things come to mind.
I want to take you back to what you said. So you said something about pattern of behaviors. So I believe when you're with someone and you notice a pattern of behavior, so a pattern of behavior that is not very consistent with the trigger. Okay, so something happens, there's an event, but their pattern of responding to that event is not the norm. So when that happens, you see consistently, I think it's time to have an open communication. In relationships, you should always foster an environment where you can have open communications, because that is one of the key things. If you're not able to sit down and have an open communication and kind of like resolve conflicts, then it's a problem. It means that you have to go to the next level. Now, people react to things differently, okay? So that behavior could be their way of reacting to something, right? Now, we don't encourage people to go out and, let's say, cheat and stuff like that. I'm not saying, and I'm bringing this point out for a reason. Now, when you see in the world a man who goes out to cheat or have affairs with other women, it's either one or two things. Actually, it's three things. One, they are not getting that satisfaction at home. One. Two, they have that behavior that they need to break from. 3 is their reaction from a conflict they have not resolved. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, people respond to things in different ways. Someone can be upset with their partner, right? And because of that, they decide that they're not going to cook dinner. That is not the right way to respond to being upset with someone. But that is their way of doing it. So when you see a behavior in response to something that is not to you, is not consistent, you have to sit down as a couple. When you see your wife nagging all the time, which women are supposedly nag, which I don't believe is a good connotation to put to a woman that she's nagging. She's complaining or she's talking a lot because of something. Something that is not resolved. So instead of saying that, oh, why are you complaining all the time? Why are you nagging? Find out from her. What is making you feel this way? Why are you feeling a bit restless? Why are you feeling... So instead of using those negative connotations to try and even resolve a conflict, try and use more positive words. And when you come out and you are more affectionate, even in asking, they are more willing to open up to resolve that conflict. So 2 things take home. People respond to things differently. It may not be right? So when you see that behavior, it means something is wrong that needs to be addressed. When you see a pattern of behavior that is not consistent to the norm, that is also a key that there's something going on that may have to be addressed. Thank you.
Hello? Okay, I just want to say more what Dr. Rose is talking about, but I want to ask a question around that. Maybe it's a question answer, and I'll throw it back to you. Going back to childhood trauma. So the person has gone through this trauma, gotten married, and then these situations are happening. So the husband realizes, oh, this is the situation, wants to address it, and then move through that so that they can be a better couple. I know prayer also helps in this area, but I want you to address, it could be man, it could be woman, like the situation you just gave about the man going out there and cheating. So prayer, what should the lady do so that this relationship stands? I hope you've understood. I'm just trying to put the question in.
If you could pinpoint the actual question and clarify, because you said a lot, and the answer I would give, I wanted to actually hit the specific one. So
I throw it back to you. Just pick from that, because I put a lot from what you have said, and I put a lot together, and that's why I'm handing it back to you. So just answer any one of that, and I know the Holy Spirit will be here to help us understand.
Amen. So I prepared material today, and I think in my what I'm actually going to say, you get the answer that you're looking for. And I want to go back and actually talk about how traumatic experiences in the past affect our relationships today. So I've gone down a journey, especially dealing with people who have borderline personality disorder, which is probably, I guarantee you, Dr. Rose, when she sees that on the diagnosis, she doesn't want to see that. I don't want to see that because these people are difficult to manage. So I did a lot of research, and I actually started talking to a psychologist friend of mine. Yeah, he has practice in Oakland. And he says he doesn't qualify borderline personality disorder as a personality disorder because it's a little bit different than the other ones. And when he says that, it's so much connected to past trauma, unlike the other ones, that it's almost a certainty that if this person has this kind of disorder, then they have past trauma. So this kind of personality disorders and that I'm talking about, if they arise from traumas, it's not like I can't call it a spiritual thing. It is a process of thinking. Your mind changes and how you think changes completely. Specifically in borderline personality disorder, it usually arises in like sexual traumas, abuse, and different kinds of neglect as a child. And it's not like a grown person as a child. And I usually pinpoint the age between 6 and let's say about 12. Because based on Erickson's theory of development for brain development, those are the places where you're dealing with identifying yourself, finding yourself in society, and then actually coming to a point where you're gaining some independence and also dealing with stressors. If you don't have a situation around that age range where you are confident in who you are secure with your parents and your surroundings, and then you also have a way that you're dealing with stressors and disappointments, you grow up and then what essentially you see is grown people having tantrums. So when we have that process as a young person, and it's a healthy process in your household, in your childhood, it leads to a lot of people who have more healthier ways of coping with stress and different factors in their life, and they don't have those quote-unquote tantrums. But when you have those kind of traumas in your life, it changes the way that you see the world completely. So one of the questions I ask myself when I'm evaluating specifically people who have borderline personality disorders is, if I take the average person and put this person in that other person's situation, how would they be? Would they be normal, or would they be under the same amount of distress? And if it's borderline personality disorder, that means that person is not going to be under distress under the same circumstances. But because that person has gone through so much trauma in the past, they've had so much neglect, they've had so many negative experiences in the past, the way that they see the world is different. Things that cause no anxiety in somebody else is going to cause much anxiety in the person. I have a couple of patients, they'll say, oh, I get a text from my boyfriend, and he'll make a text, and then I'm automatically thinking, oh, why did he use this word? Why did he use this punctuation? Is he cheating on me? Does he not love me anymore? Why is he doing this to me? Oh, and then their mind goes all the way over here to somebody that didn't have anything to relate it. And then 2 hours later, they're texting their boyfriend 2 paragraphs. I can't believe you're doing this to me. Why are you leaving me? And all he says is, are you having a good day? So it changes the way that you see the world. When you go through traumas, it affects the way that you understand things, and most importantly, it affects how you address them inside. So when someone has been through trauma so many different times, and the way out of that trauma, way out of that thinking was misbehaving, or even, I have a patient who, he's one of the people who does the sex and love addiction with Michelle. When he has an argument with his wife, that's when he goes to get on the porn sites. Because that's self-soothing for him. Why? Because he had so much trauma when he was a kid. His dad used to beat the brakes off him. Him and his brothers. So when he found masturbation, and when he was like, 12, 13 years old, it was after he had that kind of negative interaction with his father that he would go and do that. And now as a grown man, you argue with your wife and, okay, I need to soothe myself. And now becomes a pitfall in itself. So these kind of traumatic experiences, it changes the way that we see the world, and also it changes the way that we think. So now your husband hasn't done anything, your wife hasn't done anything, something small came up, and it's a completely different argument. The other person looking at you, where the heck did this come from? I just asked you to do the dishes. So those kind of traumas, they negatively impact us. And I had some more material based on these traumas. So the diagnosis that I would give if most people who had like significant trauma in the past is number one, PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And on the second part, which is, I guess, next level, would be personality disorder, because many of them arise from neglect and abuse and those kind of things. And it's usually cluster B and cluster C that we're talking about. People who have a lot of distress, they are very eccentric, sometimes we call them dramatic. And then in cluster C, people who deal with a heavy load of anxiety. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine. I grew up with this guy. We have a 5-year age difference, but he and his sister had 2 different upbringings, even though they had the same parents. His sister was raised in a boarding school, so even from class 1, she was in boarding school at 1. But he was at home with his parents. And his mom has also gone through so much trauma. So his mom at home, we are Kwasia. You're a foolish boy, stupid boy, useless boy. Over criticizing him all the time. So today, when he's around his parents, he's automatically anxious. He doesn't feel he has, and he's 35 years old. He doesn't have the room to do anything because in his mind, he assumes that everything that he's going to do is going to be criticized and told that he's wrong. So what does that do to him? His self-confidence is completely nothing. Because he believes that everything he does is wrong. Because when he was growing up, this was enforced by his parents. So even in situations where they didn't have to criticize him, they criticized him. Go and dress yourself. Oh, why did you wear this shirt? This shirt is ugly. Why, you want to be a foolish boy out there? Come back and they change shirts. But you have eyes. Why can't you see that this is not nice? You go to school, you get a B or a C, and then, oh, you're a foolish boy. I tell you all the time, you don't know, you don't study. Instead of trying to find out, okay, how can I help you to get better grades? So all the time in his life, he's been told he's a fool, he's an idiot. So how would he have any kind of confidence when he grows up? As soon as he makes mistakes, now it's flashbacks. I'm a fool, I'm an idiot. I can't do And that's how he was raised. So as a 35-year-old, he deals with a lot of anxiety. Self-confidence and self-worth are a problem for him. It is not that he's getting better because he's getting treatment. And that's through therapy. These personality disorders and this PTSD is not a pill I can give you to help you with. The root cause is that you have to resolve those issues that you went through as a child, when you went through as a young person, to get to the point where you're actually confident in yourself and that anxiety wears away. Let me move on. So, the post-traumatic stress disorder, it has many different roots. The first way that we actually start to see it is actually through military personnel. So when you went to the military and you had some kind of combat or trauma over here, that's when you started to identify it. We call that being shell-shocked. And that shell-shock is what they identified, and they started to do more research on that. And they found out, hey, it's not just military people. People from around the world in different situations have this. Identifying PTSD sometimes is, as I said, irregular responses to stimuli. Let's say Pastor Henry's over here, and then I close my iPad over here, and it makes a snapping sound. Then automatically he runs to the back. Why are you doing that? It might be that this guy was in the military and he heard gunfire on a regular basis, saw many people die. So that's what goes into his mind when he hears that sound. It brings him back to those moments. And when you go back to those moments, it's not that you're here. You're back in that moment. Your body and your brain respond as if you're back in that moment. That's what we call flashbacks or even panic attacks. People who've experienced sexual assault and abuse, rape, childhood sexual abuse, and sexual harassment and coercion, it affects the person, as I said, the way that they think and the way that they see the world. Now you've been abused by two of your uncles as a child growing up, and now you don't trust men. You have a reason not to trust men. Because you've been traumatized. That every time that a man has had authority over you, they've taken advantage of you sexually, it's going to affect you. Especially this sexual trauma has so many different ways that it can affect young women. Sometimes some women actually become more sexual because of those early childhood sexual encounters. And some people become completely closed off to sex in general. So they have an immense effect. Now you find a nice woman, oh, this woman looks nice. Now you want to get in a relationship with her, not knowing that she's had all this trauma in her life. I have a patient right now, he was crying because his wife cheated on him. And he asked her, why are you doing these things? She can't even give an answer to why she needs. And I come to dig and find out, he says, this girl, when she was 16, 17 years old, was a prostitute. The prostitution stemmed from her relationship with her mother and father, which was not there. So at a certain time, she had to fight her way through this life and figure things out for herself. And she figured out a way that she could make money. So through her teen years, she was sleeping with guys for gifts. And then when she turned 16, 17, she graduated to full-blown prostitution. So now she's in a situation where she still loves the guy, but yet she's doing these things because it's now because of the trauma that she's experienced. And now that we've identified these things, and now she's getting help through medication and therapy, the relationship is so much better. Now she has a stable mood because before they'll get an argument and it will blow up ridiculously, as if something serious has happened, but it's just a simple argument. So these things really, really impact it. So sexual abuse, physical assault, and violence. As I told you, the patient of mine who was beaten severely by his father. His father was also dealing with PTSD because his father was in the war in Vietnam. So his father just used to beat him senselessly all the time. So he now has that self-soothing where he actually goes to engage in masturbation and he's completely addicted to porn at this time. So that's a response to the trauma that he's experienced before. So physical assault, domestic violence, muggings, robbery, physical attacks, stalking or threats of harm. Sometimes severe accidents or injuries. So car or motorcycle accident, severe falls, or other natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, experiencing all kinds of destruction around you. Those kind of things happen. So if you see a situation where there's a big mudslide and people are having floods and hurricanes are going on, or somebody had an earthquake over here and they had to be underneath the building for 48 hours, that person, for the most part, is not going to be the same afterwards. And they require help. And sometimes you might not know that, but you have to deal with it. So as I said, address these things, identify them, address them, and find a way to bring these two issues to the person so that you can get help. Neglect is also something. You know, one thing I find with a lot of patients is that I sit down and ask myself, was this person loved as a child? was this person loved as a child? And when most of us are Africans here, how are we loving our children? Oh, I pay their school fees. You eat. You have clothes on your back. You have a roof over your head. I love you. So that's how we express love towards our children. But listen, I want to tell you, especially those who come from the motherland, our culture is not always right. There are better ways of doing things. And many of us say, oh, this is our culture, this is our culture. If your culture is expecting everybody to get divorced at the age of 50, after 15 years of marriage, is that a good culture? No. We need to identify things and then change them accordingly so that we can actually have happiness in our lives. So we, as I said, my friend was verbally abused his whole life, so that's why it's causing problems. We do the same thing to our children. I was very, very fortunate. My parents were having a whole horrible situation over here in America. So what did my mom and my dad did? They sent me to Ghana to be with my grandparents. What did my grandparents have? A very, very loving relationship where I saw that expression of love. And they dealt with me in a loving manner. Did I do everything right all the time? Absolutely not. But the way that my grandmother and my grandfather disciplined me really allowed me to grow in a proper way where I didn't have self-doubt and self-esteem issues. So neglect, especially, I wish they had a word for it, like neglect, love and neglect. I don't think I'll point that term, I'll put it on there. Love, neglect. Children need love. They need to know that they are loved. They need to have that security of love. Because when you treat a child like that, it's horrible. We were joking on the phone. I was talking to Pastor Henry about this kind of topic. I said, listen, we're no longer in a war zone. He said, peace time, we can calm down. I told him about my cousin, and she's a CPA right now. She has 2 masters, and she'll tell you right away. When she was a child, and I didn't know this was normal, but Pastor Henry told me that was normal. She said when she didn't do the dishes, her mother would carry the dishes and put it into the bed with her. Yes. So okay, you're surprised like I was. I was surprised, but Pastor Henry said, "Oh yeah," he said, "Where are this?" This is normal.
It's not normal, but it happens a lot. If you don't wash the dishes,
Did you experience that?
No. I didn't experience it because I had no.
This same cousin I'm talking about, she has like a minimal level of ADHD, so she's very, very easily distracted. So when she was studying as a kid, her mom recognized she was easily distracted, so her mom did what? She locked her in the closet.
Whoa.
So her mom was trying to find solutions, but they're not the best solutions to the problem. And that creates trauma, and that creates, as I said, a different way of seeing the world as you get older. So somebody who has been treated like this by their mother, when they are raising their children, what are they going to do?
How about when they're in a relationship?
When they're in a relationship, yes.
The mother never also expressed like loving language towards her. Until she got older, that's the first time her mom said, "Oh, I love you." So children need to know that they are loved. And we as Africans, we always think that, okay, well, if I love them, I'll spoil them. No. I didn't say to take away discipline. I love my kids. I tell them I love them. Until a few years ago, I was even kissing them on the forehead, but I told myself it's too late for that. But I also beat my kids. Okay, let me stop saying this. I spank my kids when appropriate, and I never do it in anger. Because they are young, and they don't understand something, so as much as I explain to them, they won't understand. But you know what they understand? They understand pain. Oh, yes. He's the one I beat the most.
My parents never started me. I grew up at home.
You don't need to spank every child. You need to discipline every child, but you don't need to spank every child. Not every child requires spanking. I have friends and I have family. My wife is very, very gentle, so she didn't require spanking when she was young, but she did require discipline. So discipline is a must. Spanking, I don't call it a must, but discipline is a must. My younger boy, he's very, very stubborn. So you talk to him, he just doesn't hear. He's a sweet one. Yes. You live in my house and ask my wife if she'll say he's sweet. So the way that we raise our children, we need to make sure that we are loving them. We need to make sure, even if we're disciplining them, we do it in love and help them to understand. So when I spank my child, I don't just go angry and then kick the door down. Hey, why do you do this? And I throw them all over the place. I do it in a metered way, and I tell them, you understand why I'm doing this? This is why I'm doing this. This is what you did, and I don't want this to continue. That's why I'm doing this. Because the second time I said it, you didn't listen to me. So they understand. And the most part, when that happens, it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Because it's direct relationship.
Yeah, because it's a direct relationship between the brain and the butt.
Yes. So when you take love out of discipline, that's when you get abuse. Let me say that again. When you take the love out of the discipline, that's when it becomes abuse.
That's true.
Amen?
Amen.
I thought we were going to have a lot more older people, but people over here are younger than me. So this is for the future, as you raise your children. And they say that this generation is soft, so we all do that.
That was my next question. That why do we have more mental health issues in this modern time than before? I don't know how to fix it, but we are hearing a lot more. I have mental issues. I have mental issues. I have mental issues within this generation. And I'm not putting anybody on that. I'm just saying that we are hearing more of it in this time
I want to give
than other times.
I want to give Dr. Rose time to talk about this, but I want to say something specifically. So I mentioned one part of what I'm saying. So if you take love out of discipline, that is abuse. But when you take discipline out of love, that is neglect. When you take love out of discipline, that is abuse. But when you take discipline out of love, that is neglect. You're not doing your job as a parent. Exactly. You are being neglectful. And children pay the penalty for that. They did a study and they looked at different parenting types, and I don't have it fresh on my mind. So they looked at parenting types where they were very, very loving, but then very, very free. They took the situation where they were loving, but then they were disciplined. And they took a situation where they weren't loving and they were disciplined. The best situation that they had is when the person was loving and disciplined. When the person was disciplined but there was no loving, then you see a lot of traumatic experiences and you saw a lot of abuse. When the person was loved but not disciplined, that's where you start to see a lot of the mental health issues. That's where you see the depression, and that's where you see the anxiety the most. The most, where they are loved but there is no discipline. They're like free-range chickens. They just walk everywhere and do it.
Wow.
When you give children the opportunity to do what they want to do when they want to do it, that's what causes a lot of depression and anxiety, because they can't deal with the real world. The real world will check them where you didn't check them. The real world will challenge them where you didn't challenge them. The real world will correct them where you didn't correct them. And they haven't built up the skills and the understanding to deal with that. So you see somebody who's had no parenting when they got older, they go into the job force, and then at the first meeting with their boss, the boss yells at them a little bit. I'm having a panic attack. I can't handle this. You know, I was in the military. Dr. Rose was also in the military. Now in this generation, when you're in boot camp, they can say, oh, I'm stressed out. I need to go and sit down.
Whoa.
Was that an option for you? It definitely wasn't an option for me. But these are the decisions that they're making, and it's making people actually have more issues. Now, that's not the only reason why we have more issues. One of the reasons we have more issues is that we know about these things more. We understand them more, and we are more open to hear people talk about them and explain them and complain. I don't want to use the word, but express themselves about this, because before it wasn't a thing. You, Pastor Henry, when you're in Ghana as a 25 years old, how old were you thinking?
That was early 30s.
Okay, when you're 25 years old in Ghana, if you're having anxiety, was there somebody you can talk to about it?
No. There's nobody.
And if you express it, would you be seen in a positive or negative way?
No, they say you're weak.
Exactly. But nowadays we can have a conversation. Oh, I'm having anxiety. And then I ask her, what's making you anxious? What are you worried about? But back when I was growing up, oh, I'm having anxiety. What do you mean you have anxiety? Did you eat today? It's because you don't bath. It's completely dismissed. So you don't get any kind of resolution. As I said, today it's more open. So that's why we see it. So if you open the floodgates for people to be express themselves, then you're going to get way more self-expression. But because back then it wasn't there. We didn't acknowledge it. You're either weak or you're strong.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to be weak, what do you got to be? Strong. In the military, we say, take it strong and suck it up. That's it. All right. Dr. Rose, can you help us a little bit on this?
Yeah, so to add on to that, so how many of you, when you were coming here, noticed a red car? You noticed a red car? Okay. So to add on to what he was saying, historically we haven't been aware of these mental health challenges because it wasn't something that was the focus. Okay. Now there's more awareness. If I tell you that on your way home from here, start looking for red cars. Do you know how many red cars you're gonna see? Wow. A lot. So there's awareness now. So we are looking out for those things, right? Now you know what it means. I used the word earlier on, emotional intelligence. When you go on all these dating apps and you go on these dating shows, they all say, I want a man who is emotional intelligent. I want a woman who is emotional intelligent. Because now they know what emotional intelligence means, right? So that's why we are seeing all these things. People want someone who will be there for them when they are low, when they are down, when they are challenged. Now, I have a majority of my patients, for some reason I get them, ages between 6 to 27. That's the biggest of my population, for some reason. I don't know. And a lot of these 25-year-olds just started work from college, and they feel overwhelmed. Yeah. I mean, they come, I do EAP as well on the side, so I get a lot of those. 25, 26, 22. Their first job, they feel so overwhelmed. There's so much. They don't know what to do. You know, so now they need help. They need counseling. They come to me and tell them, you don't need medication right now. Let's go first, see a counselor. Actually, you need a coach, a life coach, to help you. I teach them like the 4 A's of stress management, because those are the things you can apply to your job to help you. So there's a lot going on. Like he said, we are not taught those skills as we are growing. So like things that, you know, typically maybe baby boomers can handle, Gen Z and Gen X can't handle, right? Because they haven't been exposed to that, right? So it's just about learning coping skills, learning how to cope to the environment with your social environment, to the stresses at work, to the stresses at home, to the stresses in your relationships. You have to find ways to cope. If it means self-care, you have to take some time off, some vacation, some hangout, like you have a room at home that is just your cave, the men's cave, the women's cave, you know, go to the spa, things. You have to take time, you know, to take care of yourself. You have to love yourself, okay? Don't die to yourself in a relationship. In a relationship, your partner has to add. They shouldn't make you die, they only enhance, but you also don't lose yourself. So you have to take time, really intentionally take time to take care of yourself and your mental health. So to just conclude on that part, like he said, there are a lot of red cars on the road. You just weren't aware they were there, but now you are being made aware that they are there.
Yes, the lady with the breakup with him shirt, that one over there. You had your hand up?
Oh yeah, we'll break up in there.
Hi. So just based off of what you were saying about red car analogy, how would you go about the opposite direction, where Gen Z may have certain knowledge about more mental health awareness, because we're in this generation where we're aware of it, and relationships with the older generation, baby boomers, in aspects that you might not be as aware of. So you might try to bring something up, and they'll be like, oh, well, that's just something, let me just pray about it and forget about it. But you're seeing an actual problem. How do you
Okay, so, I mean, are you in a relationship with that person, or are you just talking to that person?
We're in a relationship.
Okay.
Is it romantic?
No.
Okay.
So if, you know, it's, when I say gaslighting is real. And I want us all to understand, gaslighting could just mean just not acknowledging someone's emotions, what they feel, and you're just blowing it off. This person is telling you this is how I feel about something, and then you're telling them, oh, just go and just pray about it. And I mean, you can't just dismiss people's emotions and how they feel. Prayer is good. I'm not saying prayer is not good, but you can't dismiss people's emotions. That is how they feel, okay? When you start dismissing people's emotions, they're going to build a block. Now, next time, they're not going to even come to you. They're going to go to somewhere else where they'll be listened to. So, in relationships, whether it's family, mother, father, romantic relationships, let's not dismiss each other's feelings. Now, on your part, what you could do is, you're talking to them, don't listen, text them. You don't have to write a whole chapter. Just tell them, I really need time to talk to you to understand how I feel, because this is affecting me this way and that way. You know, if they're not going to listen, send them a text. That's what I was saying.
What about for their own emotions?
You can't change a person.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You can't change someone. You can only change how you respond to it.
Thank you.
One question here.
Before she speaks, I thank you very much for saying that. Because a lot of people, they didn't take the steps that she said you should take before you get married. And now they're in a marriage and there's immense problems. And you don't want to get out of marriage, but you want to change that person. Change in individuals, and she'll tell you probably even more than me that if that person is not willing to change, there's not going to be any change. There's not going to be any change. You can't force another individual to change. So sometimes you can help that person to change. But if they don't want the help and they don't want to change, what can you do? As you said, change the way you respond to that person. And you need to spend less time with that person so they understand that it's affecting the relationship. Do it. Because if you do everything they're saying, they're going to see, oh, there's no problem. Why should I change?
My question is, a good morning. Hello, everybody. My question is, when you're in a relationship, before you be in a relationship, you feel like you can handle everything by yourself and be good at even on the time. And in a relationship, you feel like you got a hand. You feel like you can do like home, you can cope some stuff like you feel behind or you feel like you didn't do enough. Or that's because we're talking about emotion and feelings like.
So when you say you can't do things like you want to catch up, is it because the other person is making you feel that way, or that's your own internal feeling? Is it being verbalized to you that why aren't you doing this and why aren't you doing this? Or it's your own internal response?
No, the own. Because that the person is really calm, really loving, really showing emotion, but you feel like you don't do enough to cover about.
That's when I'll start to ask you, what was your upbringing like?
What you say?
So this is when I begin to ask the question, what was your upbringing like? How were you as a child? How were the parents and how did they deal with you? Were there anything that you went to? Because if you feel like everything is going well with the other person, but yet you feel about it by yourself, it's probably something that you've grown up with, and it's a feeling that you have about yourself because of what you've experienced. So that is where you need to go and talk to a therapist and explore what exactly it is, and then start to resolve those kind of issues. Because if, as you say, things are well with the other person, and you feel like it's just you, then it's more than likely just you, but you need to go and figure out why it is doing. You're doing what we're doing. Sometimes we behave a certain way that we don't understand why. You can investigate. Go talk to a mental health professional and start to explain. And please, when you go there, don't withhold information. They can't help you if they don't know everything. That's why I get frustrated with my patients sometimes. Like, why didn't you tell me this before? So that we can actually get to the point.
That's very interesting. So that I had a patient who came, presented with depression, right? She's married. Well, PhD score, everything was high, so we treated medication. The TMS of this patient because of the depression. Coming to find out her depression was because she was cheating.
Yeah, you'll be stressed.
Go figure. If you had told me this, would have saved you and me all that. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question. My question is back to mental health and trauma. During your courtship, I've been married 30 years. Hello, everyone. I've been married 30 years, but during your courtship, I remember I was very transparent as far as my trauma was concerned. And I fear that if I didn't, 15 years down the road, my husband found out about my trauma. So during courtship, how far should an individual go without just like scaring their prospect or whatever the case is?
Yeah, I don't want you to go and trap somebody. So, and you don't lead with these things.
Right. You said that I heard you say that you see the cues. Some of these guys are bigger than do others. I mean, isn't that up to the individual to disclose some of those traumas?
Absolutely. I believe it's your responsibility because seriously, if you don't disclose these things that are a problem for you, you're actually setting yourself up for failure. So as I said, you don't leave with this thing. You don't go on the first day, I was raped by 2 of my uncles, and then when I got to high school, I got sexually abused as well. You're automatically going to scare the person. If you are at a secure place with the person, that's when you do it. Because if you don't have a ground to stand on, you're going to fall. So it doesn't mean that you're not worthy of love. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy of a deep, loving relationship. It's just you have to talk about things and let this person know. Or if it gets to a point where your pattern of behavior, the way that you think, is actually interfering in the relationship, and they start to ask you questions, that is an opportunity now to open up and say, this is what's going on. Because if you don't say that, you're actually taking away the other person's ability to choose. Imagine I'm a man and I'm courting a woman and let's say I'm infertile. And I'm infertile and then you didn't know about it and we got married and down the line we can't have children. I say, I forgot to tell you I can't have kids. I've taken away that person's ability to choose. Because if it wasn't so, they probably would have made another choice. Of course it's going to hurt me, but I want that person to choose. And when you don't tell these people about these kind of things that are a problem in your life, you take away their ability to choose. I hope that answers your question.
You did. The caveat of the generation,
The new generation. I was out to dinner a couple of days ago, and a young woman was telling me her grandmother had Alzheimer's, and then she was just oversharing information. This is a waitress. She was traumatized with the grandmother. She just went on, and then she shared with me that she was. The environment was too loud for her, and she was just freaking out at my table. So when you're saying look for the red card, I've seen red cards because in my generation, there was no red cards, if you will. So what I'm saying is oversharing, I guess is what
We call it trauma dumping now.
Trauma dumping, and that's the word she used. That's exactly what she used. The trauma.
Yeah, you need to, if it's a lot, listen, some people can't handle that. If you have people who grew up in a very, very loving household and everything was right, and you start to tell them about all these things back to back to back to back, you will scare the living bejesus out of them, and they will run away. If you want a relationship, that person wants a relationship with you, you need to go about it in a very, very metered way. You have to measure it out and just can't lay everything on that feet over here. If I'm dating a girl now, where you're into the relationship and I'm thinking about getting proposed to her, and she said, you know what, I didn't tell you this before. before, but A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, all the way to Z. Now I'm going to say, wow, can I deal with this? So I said, don't leave everything at one time. And then also, this is very, very important. Don't just let them know about the issues that you have. Let them know that you are working on these issues. Because if you've identified an issue in yourself and you're not actively seeking help, that means you're choosing to be in that situation. So why should I deal with something that you haven't dealt with? Why should I ignore something that you are choosing to ignore? So if you realize that these are problems that really affect you, start to address it and get help for it. Then you can go to that person with ammunition, because he came to me and told me that these are your issues and you're not doing anything about it. And I'm like, well, I guess you don't care about it. But show the person that you're actually taking steps to actually help yourself and the relationship. And I'm thinking it's going to go a whole lot better than what you thought.
Hello, I have a question. If you have, in a case where the man was in the Vietnam War and he was always beating the little boy, I don't even know how to express it. As a wife, when you see conflict between a son and a father, how can you help in the aspect of I'll bring prayer in and then counseling?
I just wanted to ask, do we want to take a break or do we just continue? Yeah, because they've been up there for about 90 minutes. Can we take a 5 minute break? Yes, so that they can also drink something, and then we can round up with them. We can come back to this stage and put your hands together. I believe that so far we've touched many things that have been, wow. It's a wonder. That's why they call it First Mary and Josh. Thank you so much for your decisions, for this and the prayer, for thing of mind, body, and soul. I believe that some of these things are very necessary. It's always good to come in with our bow ties and things like that, but for Redemption Hour Ministry, we've always called it a love clinic. And I think one of the times, like this particular moment, it really hit me why we call it a clinic. I know there are a lot of professionals here, Eric and others, all in the same field, medically, but learning as a group like this has been very helpful. And for me, I'm very grateful for the organizers and even the theme you chose. And so I want to say thank you so much. Let's put our hands together for them. So we're going to go to the place where there are more drinks there. I don't know about the food, but we've learned so much. But we won't go back to the question again. You have to repeat that same question. I remember you will. Okay. And then we'll keep on giving them the strength. You want to take a 5 minute break or something? Oh yeah, okay. Please go ahead. Let's go. Okay, let's put our hands together for them. Take yourself a drink. Flex yourself out of there and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye. Can we get some music from here, please? Some music from here. Hallelujah. Father, I thank you so much. Oh, Emmanuel, can we have some little bit of music, please?